and just work our way around, just for people to know exactly who we are. Make sure there's no press in your scene.
So my name is Russell Greenslade, Chief Executive of Swansea BID, Business Improvement District, and we have roughly 800 or over 800 investors, businesses in Swansea City Centre.
Hi, good morning. My name is Steve Gallagher. I'm the manager of Swansea Against Business Crime Partnership, working alongside businesses and Swansea BID.
Councillor Mary Jones.
Sir Alan Jeffrey, Uplands.
I'm Councillor Ted Hennigan. I represent the Penderry ward, and I'm chairing the Anti-Social Behaviour Scrutiny Inquiry Panel.
I'm Michelle Roberts, and I'm the support officer. Shall I just tell you who's online as far as councillors go? We have Councillor Mike Day, Councillor Alison Pugh. We also have Councillor Victoria Holland, Matthew Jones. We also have, I don't know if Lisa and Paul want to introduce themselves. That's Paul from EPM Creative, that is. Oh, we can't hear you, Paul, I'm afraid. Mike Day, would you just say something to see if we're having problems with it? If it's just
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's fine.
Yeah?
That's great.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. Okay.
Would Lisa like to introduce herself?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Lisa Wells. I am the City Centre Manager employed by Swansea Council to oversee the management and coordination of the City Centre, which takes in a number of different areas, including the oversight of the team of City Centre Rangers.
Thank you. And Ben Reynolds, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ben Reynolds. I'm the Director of Urban Foundry. We do various projects in and around Swansea and regeneration matters more further afield.
Thank you. And Paul at EPM Creative, are you able to? Oh, no, I'm afraid we can't hear you still. How about, and who else have you got? Oh, Roxanne. Would Roxanne like to introduce herself?
Hi, I'm Roxanne Dacey. I'm from Swansea Council for Voluntary Service. I'm here on behalf of Amanda Carr, the Director.
Thank you. Paul at EPM, if you're unable to put your sound on, you're very welcome to write in as well, or use the chat box if you're unable to get your sound working. Thank you.
Apologies.
We've had no apologies today.
Disclosure of personal and prejudicial interests, anyone? Prohibited of whip votes and declaration of party whips. Item 4, minutes of the last meeting. They've just a report on the meeting we had with these young people in the early East Hub in Bryn Hyfryd. It was excellent. And I got to say that I think we picked up more information there than practically all the other meetings put together. The way they organize themselves, these young people, with the youth workers, flip charts, everything else. An excellent session. So it's not minutes as such, it's just a report from the last session. The questions?
No public questions.
Okay then, so we go straight into the round table meeting, the local business community, Swansea Council Voluntary Services, etc. Would you like to kick the questions off, Michelle?
Yes, certainly. So welcome everybody. The first question, we really wanted to find out your perceptions of antisocial behaviour in Swansea. So we have asked, how do you feel about antisocial behaviour in Swansea? I don't know who would like to start with that, and then maybe people can add as we go along. Have we got anyone who would like to? Anyone here?
Can you hear me
Great,
now?
great, Russell. Yes, we can. Lovely, that's great. So would you like to introduce yourself, Paul Whitaker?
Hi. Yes, sorry, Paul Whitaker, EPM Creative Marketing. I think I got an invite as well because I'm the chair of the Traders Association down in Mumbles. I'll start then if you want. And I thought I was being brought here because I'd caused antisocial behaviour, not because we were going to talk about it. So, I think, I mean, I don't know from the perspective of town, but perspective of Mumbles. Obviously, the children have not a lot of places to go to is one thing with us, but we seem to have a massive problem with boy racers and quad bikes and off-road bikes who now don't go off-road anymore. They sort of drive up and down the pier, on the prom, through the bowling green. I mean, you probably get that in town as well, I'd have thought. But also in town, I mean, I think a major problem is that because the footfall's not as big as it was, say, 15 years ago, the people who are loitering around, drinking, fighting and stuff are more prominent and seem to have, instead of staying in the darkened recesses, they seem to be wandering through town. I'm sure the rangers are telling them what they can and can't do, but I don't know. And we never see any police anywhere anymore. I mean, you know, the police have told us in Mumbles that if people drive a high speed through the town centre, we need to get their registration number. Well, you hear them coming and then you see them pass, and that's about as good as it gets, really. You haven't got a chance to get your camera out of your pocket. So I think really we just need a bit of maybe joined up thinking, and rather than just letting people rampage around the place unattended to. Anyway, that's from a Mumbles perspective. I'm sure people who are based in town, like Lisa and I, have got a different angle on what's going on, but that's just my sort of thinking.
Thank you, Paul. Can I bring in Russell?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I agree. I think antisocial behaviour certainly picked up in the last, certainly since the COVID as well. Not that it wasn't there before, but the stark reality is businesses close in city and town centres because they become unprofitable. And they become unprofitable because of a multitude of reasons. One is footfall, of course, but also antisocial behaviour and crime, because that fuels needs and habits as well. So we're aware of that, and that's what our businesses are telling us. It's got a lot worse of it as well. Obviously, we invest quite heavily in the City and County Swansea, managed by Lisa Wells, the Ranger team as well, who do their best to combat it. We also put money into additional resources of police, and we've had some fantastic results of that working with Steve and Swansea Against Business Crime. We also got a system called Centricist, and that system helps businesses report what's going on and when, like Paul was saying in Mumbles. And if that happens, then businesses or stakeholders can upload that information on the Centricist, which is an intelligence gathering tool which can be shared for better resources for it as well. So I think in answer to how do you feel about social, it's got worse, and I've been doing this job for roughly 13 years. So it's certainly got a lot worse over the period of time, despite best efforts. We do definitely need more resources. We need more teeth in order to tackle it as well, because with all the fantastic stuff we got going on in the city centre, I'm very lucky that I sit on all national bids boards around the UK, and to put that in perspective, it's 350 bids. And basically eyes are on us, so we've got to make sure that the safety of investors and businesses as well as citizens and resident is top of mind with it, really. Yeah, that's it from me for now. Really happy to take any questions, really.
Should I come in at this point? Would you like me to make a comment at this point? And kind of following hot on the heels of Russell, really. Is that okay?
Yeah, certainly. Can I just ask people who are at home to just turn their mics off when they're not speaking? You get a bit of an echo. Thank you. Yes, Roxanne.
Lisa.
Sorry, Lisa. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I think I would mirror really what Russell has just said from you know, the perspective of what we're seeing and hearing and feeling in the city centre over the last couple of years. And I think that is really reflected in some of the actions that have been recently taken as measures to help tackle what is a really complex, challenging and difficult issue. The city centre rangers were mentioned earlier, and the rangers have been a team that have been around for probably in various different ways, shapes and forms, about 20 years or so. And they were originally incepted as ambassadors of the city centre, very much in a kind of visitor, customer service capacity. Over the years, the role has understandably developed as things have changed in the city centre. And over the last couple of years, the rangers have become more and more involved in dealing with issues around antisocial behaviour, to the point where we have implemented a PSPO, Public Space Protection Order, which was implemented back in December 2021 on an educational basis initially, followed by an enforcement phase subsequently in the April. And I think that is really indicative of the societal changes and the changes that we have seen in the city centre, which has meant that the Rangers' role has had to evolve in response to escalating and increasing issues of antisocial behaviour. And I think if we look at what are the issues of the day in the city centre, it is categorically antisocial behaviour is absolutely at the top of the list. And it is the thing that people have the strongest views on when I'm talking to family and friends and visitors who come into the city centre. And it does have a direct impact on return visits. When people come into the city centre, they witness certain behaviour and it is very off-putting and they don't return. And then you've got that cycle and spiral in effect. So absolutely, antisocial behaviour is a critical issue. There are lots of partners working very closely together. There is a huge understanding of the issue, but it is a difficult and it is a complex issue, and it's indicative of society in many ways.
Thank you, Lisa. Can I bring in Ben Reynolds, please?
Sorry, everything just muted then. Did you just call my name? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, thanks. Sorry, everything just went silent from my computer, beg your pardon. Yeah, I'd echo what Russell and Lisa and Paul have said about that it is an issue that certainly has come to the fore since COVID, quite possibly because for a brief period of time they were the only ones who were actually in the town centre for a brief period, and actually as everybody came back, it sort of shifted that dynamic. I was in Cardiff. I think we do need to put it in perspective. I was in Cardiff the other weekend. It was as bad, if not worse. So I don't think this is a unique issue to us, which doesn't mean we don't do something about it. But I think, it is also important to put it in context. I think the main thing for me is that, we've got to be really careful that in doing so, we don't do that kind of middle class thing of brush it under the carpet and kind of, these people who've had really, some of whom have led really difficult lives. And, I speak as somebody who runs a business in the town centre. So I also, suffer from the negative consequences of this. So I absolutely sympathise with that. But equally so, I think a sort of a policing, we need the kind of security policing element of it. There's no question about that, but we also need to be matching that. In fact, probably putting resources significantly greater into preventative action. And I think that's the area where we really need to be doing perhaps a lot more work. There are clearly a lot of people with very serious substance misuse issues. very, very complicated needs. We've got a lot of street homeless, and you know, some of whom are perfectly well behaved. They just haven't got anywhere to live or to sleep. So I'm just kind of, on the one hand, we do need to deal with it because it's about the toughest experience I've ever experienced in my entire working life economically at the moment, trying to run any kind of a business. There's no question we're in a perfect storm of the cupboards are bare after COVID. We're in a cost of living crisis. There's a lot of businesses that were literally just working to pay their electricity bills at the moment. They're not making a penny for themselves, a lot of the small independents, and just about hanging on by their fingernails. So I absolutely sympathise and think we need to do something about that. I just want to put in a plea to make sure that we don't forget the human element. And I know most of the people on this call, I know nobody is going to forget that because you're all nice people and I know you. But it's so easy with these, and I've been guilty of it myself in the past. You slip into the policing side of it without thinking about how do we tackle the root cause. So I would love to say I've got the answer of how we do that, but I'm more than happy to try and be part of the solution to it. It's certainly not going to be quick, but anyway, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ben. Can I bring in Roxanne, please?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry if you called my name. It went mute for me as well then. I didn't hear. I was going to go off topic a little bit from the city centre, just for something that we hear quite a lot in the community about, sort of issues with younger people maybe using community facilities. And again, I wouldn't necessarily take the approach of involving the police. I don't think it's necessarily the best option. But things like, there's been some investment in Clace, where the community have had funding to sort of do things within the community. And one of them was to put an amazing playground in Clace. And there's been issues with younger people using it, maybe older than, child age, and issues there. But whether there's opportunities there so we're linking in with Swansea University, who've got an app for young people. They've got 120 people on this app, and they're kind of rating how they feel about community spaces. So just wondered whether there would be potential links there and a good response where, I just think there's been a big culture shift. And I think when I was a child, it wasn't uncommon to be told off by somebody else in your community, where I think maybe that doesn't happen so much now, or if it does, they end up maybe getting a bit of abuse. But just whether there's something we could look at with a community response, rather than, again, as Ben said, thinking of police as a potential option for everything.
Thank you, Roxanne. Does anyone else want to come in on that question? Sorry, Stephen.
Thank you. If I could bring you back to the actual question that we're looking at, which is the effectiveness of strategies, policies, etc. Talking to businesses and talking to people within the city centre since, in the last 12 months, it's clear that there are lots of policies and procedures in place. Whether or not these are working is another question. And I think ones that I have, policies I've been involved in, is that there's no effective scrutiny. And if there is scrutiny, there's no actions and outcomes. Key to the issues of this is identifying, and I think Ben has raised it, identifying an issue, putting a plan in place, but not just talking about a plan, actually doing something. And this is not just a police issue. And I think what we've got to understand, there are those within, and I talk about the city centre, which should probably replicate it around the city as a whole. There are those in the city centre who actually need assistance and help. However, there are those in the city centre who are committing antisocial behaviour, and I include shoplifting and theft in that. And they're actually doing this to feed a habit. Now, the problem that you get then is those who are on the other side and need help very often get led astray by those who just want to create issues. Yes, there is homelessness. We all are aware of that. And there are those who we can help and assist. And that's the difference. Now, businesses will see what's going on, and business owners, they are savvy enough to understand that we need to deal with those creating the problems and creating the most problems. And this is a small minority. So if anything, I would say, and the question is, are the council meeting its regulatory options and obligations? In my honest opinion, probably not, but it is not just council. It's not just one organisation, but what we can't keep doing is ignoring what's going on. It needs to be dealt with. There is no easy answer, but the starting point is dealing with the antisocial behaviour by those who are causing the most problems.
Just coming on this one, because I think it was about 9 months ago, I raised the issue of the crowd of people meeting in Castle Gardens. And from there, that's where the, should I say it, sending young people to go shoplifting, fetching it back to them, and then they go around the bookies and everywhere else selling, you know, the stuff. I reported that to the police myself. Did I have any feedback? I didn't have no feedback from it, but it's something that is on record down here somewhere because I raised it down here as well. And what gets me then is the younger people who are out doing the shoplifting or whatever, they are getting next to nothing, and then it's feeding the habit of the older ones. It's a sad thing to see, but it's been going on for quite a while now. And I agree with what you're saying regarding that side of it. And businesses are affected all over the city centre. But that's where I found they congregated, is on the steps of the Castle Gardens, and then off they go, come back. Sad, but that's some of the things that we could do something about.
Yeah, if I can come back just on that particular issue, that, you know, Chair, you raise a very valid point there. That is what's going on. It's always happened in my lifetime, and my previous experience as a police officer has always taken place. The problem that you've got nowadays is there is a total lack of reporting of incidents due to the feeling, and I think you've said it, nothing, what's the point? Nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to be done. Now, if you look at the national perspective, there's probably a 300% under recording of both antisocial behaviour and shoplifting. I know of stores that I speak to, and they say there is no point. I have a great relationship with the police, and they will also tell you that they are not getting reports coming in. So it's not just pointing the finger at any one organisation, particularly the police. Yes, if the information is there, they've got the evidence, it should be dealt with. And that would be my opinion. However, I don't now run any department in the police, but I do challenge on behalf of the businesses that raise issues to me. And it is clear that the underreporting and the lack of reporting then starts to feed the lethargy and thinking, what's the point? Now we need to get over that. And I know Russell has mentioned our centricist system, which is a system which virtually mirrors the police recording system. Now we are getting businesses putting the information onto our system because they get the feeling is that I will take up the challenge on their behalf. And we have had some great successes. You know, Swansea Business Improvement District put funds into an operation just prior to Christmas, just to challenge antisocial behaviour and theft. Now, I think I upset the city centre commander because the shoplifting reports shot up because the police were actually doing and solely concentrating on going into businesses. What's the issues? What's the problems? Report it to us. There was a spike in arrests, a spike in antisocial behaviour, a spike in fixed penalty notices, and the positivity coming from the business was through the roof. Now, we can't just throw money at something, but what we do need to do is have resources in the right place, resources that are able to deal with the correct issue, have the backing of the agencies, and deal with those that need dealing with. And you're right, because if you get youngsters who are going shoplifting, they get caught and they start on that slippery slope. And that is what we need to start and try and prevent. It is a complex issue, but it is one that we can deal with.
Just on that, I think, you know, maybe that's a part of the recommendations from you. We could take to cabinet about resources. You know, I'm sure that Michelle will get something written down on that. and when it goes to cabinet then with the recommendations, I can't speak for other people on the scrutiny, but I always follow it up. After a couple of months, I'd go and find that cabinet member and I would say, well, what are you doing about the recommendation A, B, or C? Sometimes it can be a bit taken back, but that's the job I've got to do while I'm chairing this antisocial behaviour inquiry panel. And with the young people, they're sad because the next minute, the older ones are sitting back. I know the right thing to do, but I dare not say it in public.
I think we've got Victoria Holland online and then Mary. Victoria.
I'm really sorry. I woke up late, which is why my camera's off because I'm wearing a Christmas nightie and it's all gone bad. But everybody's faces just, I think, reflects how we all feel about antisocial behaviour at the minute, doesn't it? We're all exhausted by it. On the weekend, I was on Facebook and there was the video of the teenage boy on the bus with the bus driver where he was like kicking the bus door. And I just thought, and this lady was with her kid filming it. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I would have done. Because part of you wants to get involved and say, listen, clearly this is not the way you behave. But also we're afraid, because I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me. We've gone past reporting it now. What happens if somebody puts it in the residence group? Whose parents belong to these people who were cycling down High Street? My sister lived by High Street in Swansea, in Tontine Street. She works for a living. She's a single person. That's where her housing was. I was petrified of going to visit her because as soon as I got out the car, you'd be encountering some of the people from Matthew's place. And I'm all about there being understanding. I get it. People have had awful, awful lives. But when you get off the train into Swansea, sometimes that's the first thing that you're encountering is people who are under the influence of drugs. And I think at times Swansea can be a little bit of a scary place. And if that's what people are remembering when they leave him, but I mean, how you tackle that. But I feel the frustration of reporting things because by the time you've rung 111 and you've waited for a really, really long time, I imagine if you're a business owner, you're probably just not going to do it, are you? You're not going to spend that time. So as for what you do about it, but I just think I can see all the faces on the call where everybody wants to do the right thing. But like everything at the minute, I think we all feel a little bit defeated. Because I think, and not just children, I think people feel they can behave and say what they want at the minute. And I think that comes from adults as well. Everybody's walking around thinking they can behave how they want, and it's quite scary. Sorry, that was just my morning feels. I'll hide myself again now so you're not subjected to it. Thank you.
Eddie?
Thank you, Chair. And hi, Steve. Nice to see you back here. And thank to everybody that's actually sent in the answers to our questions, which were very interesting responses. One thing I will say, Steve, though, I have a horror of acronyms, and there's an awful lot in this report, and some of them haven't got the explanation. So I've been trying to work them out. I agree with, I think Russell and Lisa have got a really difficult job in the city centre, but I've got to start, if we can go back, and a lot of it is from COVID. There was antisocial behaviour before, but I'm a governor in 2 schools and we've noticed it with the behaviour of the young people in the schools. And it's not their fault because for over a year, they probably didn't socialise, only by social media. So the norms of people face to face and things and behaviour, we lost it, and it's been very, very difficult to try and get it back. So we've got to be careful we're not demonising the young people, because I think it might have been, I think it was Steve made the comment about the council not actually doing what they should. Recently, on 2 occasions, actually, I've had occasion to walk down High Street, and on one side, they leave out their refuse on a weekend, and it's obviously not collected till the Monday. Now, it may not be the council collecting it, but of course, coming down High Street from the station, you've got a lot of young people going either way. Well, it's knocked all over the place. You can't walk in some places because it's all been thrown all over the place. So we've got to get businesses as well to work with whoever they have their refuse collected by, to work with them. And it's not lovely. I know we did an awful lot of work in the city centre with that very problem, because we get them going round in the evening, don't we, by the market and things like this. But even the outlying places, like, I'm sorry to say, St Helens Road, they don't seem to be under the same regime as the city centre. But unfortunately, we've still got the same issue. I was there Saturday night on St Helens Road. Again, you're jumping over cardboard boxes and goodness knows what. And I'm not, as again, not trying to demonise anybody. It's a fact, and that doesn't help. And I know BID have done well trying to put things on boarded up shops, which I think looks you know, quite attractive. Other people think it's a waste of time, but I think you are trying really hard to make Swansea, you know, clean and tidy. But then again, as people have said, there's one, I think, from a shop owner who's saying about people hanging around. And I know they're there because I usually park very near the Grand Theatre and go into the quadrant that way. And yes, it is very off-putting going past there, but whose responsibility is it to move them on? And actually, I think I agree with them. Move the benches would probably be the easiest job to, you know, do, to stop people loitering there. But, you know, it's not all the council's fault or BID or anybody else. We are a partnership, and we must make sure we're all working as partners. Thank you.
Russell.
Just listening to around Robin on what's been going on, and it's great to hear that obviously it's not just us that's seeing that. The area you mentioned, Councillor, we are aware of that, and there's been a lot of work that's gone on in that area. It needs to continue as well. You know, conversations we've had previously that the bus area used in that area as well. We've had evidence again through our central system, windows being put through businesses as well, being really abusive to families coming up with the ground. We can't have that. It's time for it to stop. And we need to work together best we can. I think that we don't all know what the solutions are, but we as businesses are already investing heavily in, obviously working with Lisa and the team, the Rangers, additional police officers, the radio system we just upgraded, the intelligence platforms, night marshals, vulnerability marshals, cleansing teams. You know, I think we need a wider concerted effort and a proper focus on ISB before it's too late. We are already working with the police and other bids in Manchester and Cardiff, where they have them, to stop the calls for the BT Link systems, which goes back to what you were saying, Chair, about by McDonald's, by the Castle area, because those are being used for what they shouldn't be used for. So we are trying, but I think it just needs an absolute focus. And what Steve's paper is saying is a focus of attention of how we can do this working from the ground up, because it said those that need help, we can give help to. We do a brilliant scheme called Billy Chip as well, working with Matthew South and elsewhere and businesses in the city centre. But we just need a real focus of attention, as I said before, investors, which includes our 800 odd investors, which we currently have and growing, look at it in a different way, because safety of staff is absolutely critical for them.
Yeah, does Victoria want to come back in, or is your hand up from before?
From before, sorry.
Alison?
Yes, thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Chair. I'm obviously here today as the cabinet member where ASB sits in my portfolio, and I believe this is our 8th session, and we've spoken to the partners around the area. And last week, as the Chair said earlier, we met with young people with Evolve, and it was a really, well, it was excellent. It was absolutely excellent, but it was a real eye-opener, hearing it from the young person's perspective. And for a lot of them, they were saying that, you know, obviously it's not just city centre, we got hotspots all across the city. You know, they themselves often don't feel safe. Yeah, you know, and that came through loud and clear. And they were also sort of very quick to point out that they, you know, often they see adults misbehaving, causing ASB, causing issues. You know, it's often not the younger person, it's actually people that are over 18, you know, but they said that they feel they get tarred with the same brush sort of thing, you know. And as Chair knows, you know, it was lots of them said that if they had issues, they wouldn't go to their mothers, they wouldn't go to, you know, to family members, but they also didn't feel that they would go to PCSOs, and they didn't have these relationships. But the loud and clear came across the fact that they felt unsafe, and that is a real worry. You know, and you know, they also said they haven't got anywhere to go. They hang around, and not necessarily are they always hanging around to cause trouble. They're just hanging around where there's a light, where there's shelter. You know, and he was the same. Gosh, even when I was young, that's what we done, didn't we? We all hung around, but you know, but I know it's hard, and it's hard for businesses, and but there is, as this scrutiny inquiry is seen over these sessions, there's absolutely a load of work being done. There's a lot of partners involved, you know, but it is complex. And, you know, we have one officer in the community safety team that is absolutely inundated, but does but works in partnership with housing, as housing have been here, police have been here. Now, that's not to say services you know, need to be looked at. Are they working? Are they not? Is there other things that can be done? Hopefully the scrutiny inquiry will, you know, help, sort of thing. But, you know, from a council point of view, there's a certain thing that we can do. There's a certain thing police can do, you know, but it is that sort of communicating, talking. People need to report it. You know, there's a whole, and the question was asked last week as well, you know, what is ASB? What, you know, what is ASB? What do we class as ASB, and what do we class as children just hanging around? You know, and also, when is it criminal? And just from the bus station point of view, and I know it's very difficult there, you know, lots of the people that come in are not even from Swansea. And the lad on the bus, he was punted away. Do you know what I mean? So you know, but it is complex, and I'm really glad this inquiry is happening, because it does give everybody a chance to see all the work that's going on. And I hope you've read past reports. There is a lot of work, but that doesn't mean that it can't be improved. Thanks.
Thank you, Alison. I think that's probably a good point to move on to the further questions we've got. Do you believe it's dealt with effectively and appropriately? And also, probably we could answer the question about partners working together and how well you think that is actually happening. If anyone has any comments on that to start with.
As the Crime and Disorder Act allows for statutory partners and roles within this field of antisocial behaviour. And I know Councillor is correct, antisocial behaviour. It's somebody's determination and perception about what is antisocial behaviour, what is hijinks, what is crime, etc., etc. And there is no definitive answer, and we'll probably not get there. However, I think what I must say is that we shouldn't just restrict this role to statutory partners. We've got third-party organisations which are not named within a list under the Act, and I refer to one of these as Swansea Against Business Crime Reduction Partnerships. We are a crime reduction partnership, but not restricted to crime. Nationally, these partnerships are seen as vital to the answer to crime and disorder. Not the solution, but the answer, because what they are doing is listening to, shall I say, people on the street, not just businesses, not just those walking down, not just visitors, because we want to ensure that our city, both centre and surrounding, is welcoming to all. I've been to many cities and in my guise, and Swansea is seemingly to be one of these that have lots of problems. It's not just restricted to Swansea, it's restricted to every city, every town have got them. But it's the volume that seems to be increasing, and the lethargy in reporting, which is a problem. I, through the partnership and through BID and through other contacts, are trying to overturn this and get reports in. I met with one business last week, and they said to me, well, if I report every incident, I'd be putting a report in every day. Now, I said, fine, put the report in, because if we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it. So as the case is, it is a partnership. There are regulations and responsibilities which have to be carried out, which come under the Crime Disorder Act. So what I would be looking at, listen to everybody, bring everybody on board, and listen to the challenges. There might be reasons why the partnership are not invited, and I might be a bit sort of upfront now and say it might be because the group don't want to hear what the partnership have to say. They don't want to be challenged and don't want to be questioned. But I think if we are questioned and you listen to that, at least you know what's going on, and we shouldn't be afraid of challenge and questioning. So I think that's what I bring in. It's not just regulations.
Could I just say on that, how do you feel, this word partnership keeps coming up on, not just on the scrutiny, but, throughout many of the meetings. And sometimes I've thought that when they say partnership, is that no one's taking responsibility. And they're getting away with it by saying about the partnership. I don't know what people would feel on that. It's not one of the questions. It's just a response to what he was saying. It just goes on. And I'm wondering, I always say equality in partnership, equality in the decision-making process that affects our homes, our community and environment, where people are supposed to live and raise their families, when they're in partnership, do they get that equality of in the decision-making process? I haven't got the answer at the moment.
I don't think there is an answer. Partnerships, I like to think I'm the boss at home, but I know it's a partnership and I would never say that. The same can be expanded throughout our life. There are partners, and no one single agency can deal with this. It is a partnership of police, external agencies, housing, etc., etc., etc. It can go on and on. You raised one key issue, though, Chair, is that it has to be dealt with. So if something is said in a meeting and we have an action, then action it. Not wait until we come to another meeting and we talk about it. Hold on a second, we've already spoken about that. What is the action? What's the outcome? I mentioned, and you've seen my report about the PSG, as they call, and I had to ask the question for this because what I remember as PSG is not what the police call it. It's a problem-solving group, which is absolutely fine. First meeting I went to, I thought to myself, what is the point of this? There's absolutely no point. The new police inspector then discussed with various partners and agencies, we have to change this. We have to look at how this is working, and it starts to change. However, sad to say that I've been on a number of meetings listening. There are still the same names, still the same faces popping up. People still, and members are saying the same issues, but we're not having the actual action and outcome. Now, if we can do that, get the actions into an outcome, then we will start to see a difference. That is key to what you say, not just talking.
Thank you. Could I bring in Roxanne Dacey, please?
Yeah, I was just going to come back to reporting again. I think I'm not sure whether the community are sort of aware of what is sort of happening in the background to tackle some of these things. I know that they did used to utilise the PCSO drop-in sessions, and whether that is kind of a good link to kind of promote that if they're still happening, whether that's a link with the community and working with partners. I think the thing we see a lot is that the community do take to Facebook. I think Alison mentioned that they kind of take it upon themselves sometimes to sort of report things, and it doesn't necessarily help. And whether there is that, again, just going back to the community link, and whether their reporting would increase if there were more opportunities in the community, maybe to link with people like PCSOs and other partners.
Thank you. Can I bring in Alison Pugh, please?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. You know, this ASB is really complex. It is, you know, when you're from the statutory side of things, you know, obviously we have responsibilities, you know, but we're very much about trying to look at the cause, and we're very much about trying to not criminalize people and try and, you know, try and sort of lots of times there's mental health issues. There's you know, we work with, as we've seen, you know, the CMET team. We work with agencies to try and help people as well, because we don't just want to you know, penalize people when without finding out what the issue is. And we do, you know, we have calls in, and yes, of course, the person is very upset at the time that perhaps they say the neighbour, but then that neighbour might have real mental health issues, and there's all teams of people working with the person. It's not as easy as, you know, just and I think, you know, it's a tad unfair to say, you know, that the officers are not you know, doing things or not doing enough or anything, because they it's really complex, and they're really busy, and you know, we have many referrals, you know, but lots of the time, you know, if you take a sign-in, which is hot potato at the moment, they said there's something like 34,000 people on the Facebook page, and they are completely demonizing young people out there as soon as there's anything. You know, these young people, they can't go in the market, they can't go in Asda's to use the toilet, they can't go in the shops. They, you know, so we've got to get this right. And I agree, see, the partnership working needs to happen. Do you know what I mean? But it is far more complex than just a report coming into the council and the council dealing with it. You know, and that's not to say things can't be improved in partnership working. I'm sure they can, you know, and hopefully this inquiry will happen. But we are trying to turn lives around, not just put them in a police route, you know.
Hello, thank you. Can we speak to Lisa, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm just listening to what's been said here, and it really strikes me that, because I'm very close to this issue, this is a daily issue for me and my team, and I am directly involved in some of the intervention work that goes on. And you know, as being covered, is a really complex issue. I think what I'm seeing here is that perhaps there is a lack of visibility, or possibly a lack of understanding of the measures that are being proactively taken to address some of the more prolific individuals. And the difficulty that the partnership have got is that we can't publicise and we can't promote that work, because we're on an absolute road to nowhere in doing that. We then get criticised from other sectors in terms of the action being perceived in a different way. I'm just looking at some data now, and you know, I can see from the data that there are 15 individuals who are very well known to many of us around the table, where decisive enforcement action has in fact been undertaken in regards to them. But that's not something that we can actually publicise. And I guess it's also perhaps a lack of visibility, or a lack of understanding, or a lack of wanting to understand kind of the governance arrangements that are in place to make sure that we are doing things right, and that there is an escalation strategy in place where, you know, people go through a process, and that it's done, and it's done appropriately and effectively. But what perhaps we don't do very well is kind of feeding back then in terms of those actions that have been taken. I mean, I know from the work that I do and some of the kind of external accreditation that goes on, and Russell will certainly back me up here with the work that he does at a national level, is that Swansea is very well thought of in terms of the proactive action that it does take on a wide range of issues, and the strength of its partnership working. The Purple Flag for the evening and nighttime economy, which very much covers the well-being and the community safety agenda. External people who are experienced in city centre, town centre management themselves in areas such as Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, are saying, wow, what you've got in place here is a really, really strong partnership who are committed and are dedicated to making, to addressing these issues. So I think we can't lose sight here of some of the really positives, but I don't think there is, I think perhaps we do ourselves a disservice in not actively promoting the good work that goes on.
I don't think we criticise it, we just, issues are being raised, and I think what we're trying to do is come to some agreement that we can come up with some recommendations, take it to cabinet. I don't think this meeting is, to criticise people. It's just a straightforward discussion. I could say, and I'm only speaking for the area where I live, is that we find that we got better chance of sorting out antisocial behaviour within our local community. Even elderly people will come to myself and other councillors and report things because they don't want to report themselves for repercussions. And we take it up, and we've been pretty successful over it. What we're trying to do is find a formula where we can try somehow, if we could sort out a local community. The city centre seems to be the main point at the moment. But we know a lot of good work is going on all over the city, and as I said last week with the young people, I think it's in the report, and it's all the first half of this page is about the city centre, and they're saying they feel safe in Town Hill and feel safer in their own community. So that's got to be telling us something about antisocial behaviour and the way young people feel. Thank you.
If you'd like to, if anyone else wants to speak, wants to put the hand up, I seem to have lost a connection on my computer, so I'm unable to. Yeah, the internet's gone down for some reason. I assume everyone can still hear me online though. Is that right? I don't really know what's happened there. Yeah. So you may need to put your hand up if you want to speak on there online. If we don't come to you, you may have to physically put your hand up. There seems to be some sort of connection issue. Okay. Russell.
Question for the cabinet member, Alison. Obviously, when you used to have a business in the city centre, were you experiencing these type of issues then when you were operating there, or would you say they've got worse over that period of time since then? Really, just from obviously you've had first-hand experience operating in the city centre. That's it. Thank you.
Hey, Russell. Yeah, no, definitely had them then too. Lots of issues with the bus station outside Wilco's, running through, banging windows. If we tried to do anything in the evening, it was an absolute nightmare outside the phone box. You know what I mean? And that's what you. I'm not saying perhaps it hasn't got worse. I don't know, but it wasn't great then either. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think the bus station is just a little bit of a honeypot, isn't it? They all just seem to congregate there. It's dry, I suppose. It's lit. It's lit up. But unfortunately, yes, there was a lot of antisocial behaviour and criminal things as well. Do you know what I mean? And often the police would be there, shoplifting, fighting, things like that. But yeah, sadly, Russell, it was there too then.
Thank you very much. And it's the evening time as well, which we're encountering more. As I said, we operate in the evening nighttime economy. Our team suffer the same things we do in the daytime, and our businesses as well. So it's that evening nighttime as well, isn't it? And we just got to get some more resources in. But thank you.
Do you think resources could be an answer to some of this in the city centre?
Yes. I think we need more resources across partnership resources. We use the word a lot. It's, as Steve has mentioned, when we put additional money into the police officers and very focused operations, which are intelligence led, which we provide the intelligence as businesses on, whether through Centricis or when we meet businesses, and it works. It really does work, and we need to join up that into the evening nighttime economy the best we can. But resources, we need more teeth, basically.
resources are always the answer, but they will not work unless they are intelligence-led. And I think Cabinet member is right. There's a lot of demonising of youngsters, and it isn't always the youngsters. You know, I see some images on our system from on a weekend and the night in Wine Street, and it's intimidating. And I know some people who are walking up Wine Street, and these people are, shall I say, worldly wise, not small people, not old people. And they said to me, don't like the feeling there, because it's perception. You know, the same is with the bus station. There's a lot of people go in there who are there, and because of where it is, it's a bus station, it's a centre, it's a hub. You've got the quadrant nearby, so it's all warm, it's all under the dry. So it is a starting point, but it's where they go from there. And the issue on the bus, which has been raised, I spoke with the police on that, and they advised me before it went public, this is what was going to happen. Because we had the intelligence, we had the information, and we had the report. And that is the biggest problem, is how we communicate. Social media is brilliant. It's a wonderful tool, but it can also be a tool which goes to the detriment and doesn't support antisocial behaviour. You know, Councillor Jones, you mentioned removal of the benches outside the bus station in Wilco's. Honestly, it's not the answer. You remove those benches, because I go down there early in the morning, sometimes because I'm visiting the shops, and you've got elderly people, even at an early stage, sitting down and having a break. In the afternoon, you get elderly people there who need somewhere to sit. However, unfortunately, there is a small cabal who tend to visit various premises early in the morning, and then they're sitting there with alcohol, getting abusive, shouting, and they're the ones that need to be dealt with and moved on, not punishing the whole. When the benches were removed, I think just before Christmas, I believe it was, the issue just moved around the corner, behind a certain premises around the corner. So it's an answer, but it doesn't solve the problem. So I think coming back to the chair's issue about resources, yes, they have to be targeted, they have to be informed, and it has to be intelligence-led, and that can be dealt with. Not just walking aimlessly around the city centre. Whoever you are, whatever you're doing, if you just walk around the city centre, you know where the hotspots are. At the moment, we have 2 hotspots, which we're trying to challenge. So why are you walking elsewhere? Why are you trolling elsewhere instead of dealing with those hotspots? That is the conversation I'm having with agencies, and that's what needs to be done. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Chair.
Could I just say, what I've found, not recently, but over the years, is that a lot of people seems to want to target young people, saying all the bad things about young people, and yet they don't want to say about the good things that's happening with young people, whether it's in the sports, whether it's in the cadets, athletics. It's fantastic. It's more good stuff being done. But it's obviously, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'll put my hands up and say that sometimes the people who are saying and making a big issue about these things are people who are chasing money to try to sort out issues within their own organisation, the city centre. That's what I believe. Not perfect, I know, but I'd like to see the young people being involved in sport, representing the football club, representing the community, and all these sort of things. Those are the positive things I'd like to see. The bad things in our local community, we can deal with it. We have dealt with it in the past. It's called the Blind and Whites 15. We went to court, we sorted it. But that's people coming together. We became the bigger gang then against their antisocial behaviour, which was good. We didn't have no resources, mind you. But the resources we have is the information from local people in the local community.
I agree with you, Chair.
Could I come in, please, in terms of the point about resources? I just want to make a very quick observation. I think that there is an issue of resources. Absolutely. I think one of the things that I've noticed with my tenure.
Sorry, can I ask everyone to turn off their mic? Sorry, we're getting an echo. Sorry.
What I found with my tenure in the city centre, and I've been around a little while, is that there is an issue with continuity, a massive issue with continuity. And this is not something that is new to South Wales Police. It's something that has been vocalised on a number of different levels in a number of different forums, whereby you get a really good inspector, chief inspector, who is very keen to make changes and ring the changes, and then they might be with us for 8 months and they will move on to somewhere else. And that is to share the learning within the force, and I understand that. But then what happens is we, as a wider partnership, are picking up the pieces and then starting to develop a rapport and a relationship with another officer who may have a very different approach to the issue or a view of the issue. So you do find yourself kind of in a bit of a predicament there very often. And I think the other thing with resources, and again, you know, my world is the city centre, and please forgive me for kind of waxing lyrical about it. But, you know, I have a team of 5 rangers at the moment. They cover a significant area, which they cover 7 days a week, every day from 9 till 5:30. They also cover key evenings in the evening and nighttime economy. So our resources are really, really split and pressurised. I was with the team this week, and within the course of half an hour on the radio, they had 12 calls and there was 2 staff. So they are being pulled in all sorts of directions. And yes, we've got an awful lot of intelligence that we share as a partnership with South Wales Police through the PSPO, and our resources have to be prioritised and targeted in line with what is coming out of that intelligence. But resources is definitely an issue, but it's not a straightforward issue. And I think the key thing is that any action in relation to antisocial behaviour has to be holistic. It has to be a cocktail of different measures that are taken in respect of that. And it's not just about enforcement, but resources is a critical part of that. Thank you.
I do agree with what you say regarding the police in respect of, it seems the police change their senior management more times than Chelsea Football Club. As you said, but it's true. You know, we get a good one up with us in Penlan or Blaenau Support Me, and things are going really well. And then next minute we got a different inspector. At the moment we have what's his name? Mr. Simon Trick. Just started working with him. Things seems to be going quite well. I just hope that guy stays for quite a period of time, because as you're saying, different police inspectors got different ways of working, but it's something we started in our hands, that part of it. But it should be looked at, because you get a good feeling in the community with the police coming round, talk to the young people, everything else, and then all of a sudden he's not there or she's not there, and that's when getting used to the next manager they fetched in, I think.
Can I bring in Mike Day?
Yeah, if I can get my microphone and camera working. Thank you. I think the point that Lisa made is incredibly important. That is the holistic approach. And I was very taken with what Ben Reynolds said earlier on about trying to deal with a number of these issues at source. A lot of the discussion has been taken up with enforcement, and I think it's a question also of, I'm sure we'll come back to this, of looking at ways in which we can provide good opportunities for not just young people, but all of those who seem to be the subject of our discussions. As the chair said earlier on, I mean, I've had the privilege as Lord Mayor of being able to go around and see so many wonderful volunteer groups and organisations that provide constructive, useful activities for young people and older people. And I think it's important that we recognise the contribution that they make. I think also we need to also not using a word that was mentioned earlier on, demonise some of those organisations like Matthew's House and Zach's Place. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because those in need do congregate in those areas, and I think with the lack of constructive activities for a number of these people to get engaged in, we do need to consider ways in which we can perhaps deal with those as well. So I hope that in our discussions going forward, we'll be able to pick up the idea of being able to look at the solutions and deal with the root problem as much as looking at some of the enforcement issues as well. And with that, I'm sorry I have to go, and hope I haven't dropped a grenade in the middle of the discussions. But thank you for the opportunity of speaking.
Thank you.
Shall we go on to the next question, which leads to quite well. Sorry.
Later's on. Thank you.
I think the next question is question 4. Is it? That's well. I was going to encroach onto that. Yeah. It's just following on what Councillor Jones says, saying earlier about acronyms. I too get a little bit confused about it. Likewise with the concept of resources. When we're talking about resources for the city centre, be grateful if you could have some indication as to what we mean by that. And I think Councillor Day sort of mentioned that issue as to how we can address the problems and the underlying reasons for antisocial behaviour. It appears, I mean, it's about 11 o'clock-ish now. It appears as though we've considered, it's quite a damning report from everybody, and from what I read on here, I think it's absolutely crucial at some point in time we need to discuss how to address these problems from source. So I was just sort of echoing what Councillor Day was saying there, that that's something that we really need to be thinking about at this point. And I think this is what question 4 is about. And as far similarly to the chair, I'm councillor for the Uplands Ward, and we've got somewhere near sort of 2,000 students there, and they are often demonised as being troublemakers and vandals in terms of antisocial behaviour, rowdiness, noise, and so forth. But then, I mean, we have several of the students who we work with. I mean, they help and do some shopping for the elderly. They help with litter picking. They do some gardening. I mean, they do a lot of sterling work as well. And I think that needs to be reported. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Should we go on to the next question, which is leads quite well to how would you like to see Swansea Council and its partners improve how it prevents and tackles antisocial behaviour, but also in partnership with the community too? Russell.
So just, I think it's the ending remarks really from our perspective, is that I like to simplify it a bit. It's safe and clean. We need to get the basics right first in the city centre, and the rest will come. When I mean that, the investment of new coming in and current businesses employing more people, that will then give our, speaking as my dad, the opportunity for more jobs in our fantastic city, in our growing city centre as well, for future generations to come. But we have to get the basics right, safe and clean, and that's what people, our businesses, are telling us as well. And we already do some fantastic work with both universities and FE colleges about supporting youth children in order to get into education, to get into the right education stream as well. But they need jobs as well, and this is an opportunity. But I say again, we need to get the basics right, which is safe and clean. And in terms of resources, that is a combined approach as well. We already put some significant monies in as businesses ourselves. We're willing to review that and review what we do. Again, working in partnership and doing what Steve does. We've got the intelligence which we can share and we can deliver on. But safe and clean, you could put more cleansing. We already do some cleansing above and beyond the local authority. but perhaps we could do even more cleansing in order. It's the broken window scenario. If you don't break that window, if you don't fix that window, then another window will be broken. That's the norm. So we got to do something about it now. But we are very big on creating the right environment for investors and businesses, and they can then create jobs and secure jobs as well for those children coming out of education and for the youth, which we talked about as well. Thank you.
Mary.
Yeah, sorry, you may obviously already do this. You said the Rangers, I think it was Lisa said the Rangers finish, I can't remember, early evening, we'll put it that way, say 5:30, 6 o'clock. But the council have parking enforcement officers that work much, much later. Is there any correlation between the two, that they report into you if they've seen anything, or, you know, things like that? Because we have got lots of staff in different roles around and about, not just finishing at the end of office hours. And I was just wondering how we link all these people together that could, you know, report something, you're saying a broken window or the rubbish that's not being collected. You know, I mean, they've got their whatever walkie-talkies, or what do you call them these days? You know, could they, you know, go to a central point, which is, I think you've mentioned, and say, well, look, on such and such a street, this has happened, and, you know, perhaps being a little proactive. I'm not criticizing anybody, I'm asking the question.
So during the nighttime economy, we have, as I mentioned, a team of people. We also have our even nighttime economy officer as well, specifically for that, who does report in what's going on in the area to numerous different groups as well. Evening nighttime economy group, and Lisa is part of that as well. I think Lisa is best answered the Ranger side of it as the direct manager for the Rangers, certainly from the evening nighttime economy recovery side of it. But from the daytime, you know, we gather intelligence. Businesses, we've got different platforms which businesses report on, even through WhatsApp groups, even telephones. We're walking around, and it's quite stark sometimes, some of the information that comes in. Oh, we're not going to be trading you much longer. So we got the right information and we're acting on it. I understand maybe putting it into a central point. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
You seem to have said you've got some kind of central,
Yeah, it's called
control
central,
or
yeah.
whatever, and is, you know, who feeds into that then? Mainly in the evening, I think I'm more concerned about.
Well, we feed into the Centrosys system. It's a free platform which we invest in for our businesses to do it, and all partners can be part of it as well. And Steve is better informed than Centrosys than I, and Steve will be able to explain. But we are in depth talks to the police about engaging with that as an intelligence pre-tour duty. But I'll pass on to Steve. That's all right, Chair.
Could you just say, you know, in our local communities, where you got big council estates, etc. If there's an issue in the evening, one particular street, by the following morning, a small report is on the desk of the local housing manager, so they're aware of what happened the night before. I can remember when we used to have housing officers used to go up to the school gate at 8:30 in the morning, and they would get so much information just being when the parents taking the children to school. We don't see that so much now, but we still got that part where police issue, the manager of the local district housing officers will have it on his desk this morning. That's the way of collaborating together. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't, but I don't know which way.
Yes, you're correct. I think in the housing estates, there's dedicated officers dedicated with just that area. The problem with a city centre is because it's very transient. The people in, people out, they come in for an evening or they come into work and they go off. Very often, a lot of them are not interested in their surroundings, other than those who, and as Russell said, if we concentrate on the safe and clean, we gather investors will come and look at us. What we've done, and picking up on Councillor Jones, the Centrosys system is a recording database, which was developed by one of the police forces in England in conjunction, and they use it solely in conjunction with their national reporting system. So you've got the two. In South Wales Police, which we are, they have a system called Niche, and I don't know what Niche stands for, but it is a national intelligence coordination, something, whatever. So our system will mirror that. Now, I'm in discussions at the moment with the police for them to use Centrasys as just an intelligence tool, because they are concerned that if they use our system and theirs, it's a lot of double keying and double work. Now, as a former senior police officer, if I'd had access to the Centrasys system, and I'm not plugging and promoting for any reason, I would be grabbing it and saying, use this. This is telling me where I have to direct my resources. This is telling me where my issues are. This is telling me what is going on. And because the information put on there is by members of the public who have signed up. I say members of the public, it's the businesses who are members of the public. And we have offered this to our partners. They can use it. If you ask me the question, are they using it? I have to be honest and say no, but it is there. So it's about gaining information and dealing with something. I get really frustrated on behalf of because I see what's going on. There needs to be a joined up approach to deal with the issues. Identify those who need support and help, and there are those. Identify those who are just using the systems for their own ends and crime and antisocial behaviour, and identifying those who need the businesses who are saying, this is what's going on, help me. There is a severe underreporting. And I know that from the people I talk to. I know it from nationally. The crime partnership, which we are, is accredited to a national body, and we're just going through our second year of accreditation. So we get an external auditor coming down, similar to what they have with the Blue Flag. So we're under the same guise as them. We're under the same scrutiny. And that's what we need. We need answers. We haven't got the solutions, but if we get an answer to a problem, let's deal with it. Let's grab it and say, move forward. Let's see if we can sort this out. It's not going to please everybody, but we have to look at those who are suffering from antisocial behaviour and support those in a far greater emphasis than the other way around.
And perhaps the starting point that you mentioned earlier on, we can walk around the city centre and see those hotspots. Why ain't it, people in authority actually seeing them as well?
They are, and then it's the next stage, which we haven't got control over. But as the chair of the scrutiny, I'm sure you will ask a question.
Can I bring in Lisa first, and then Jeffrey?
Yeah, I just wanted to make some comments really in terms of the kind of the communication and the reporting systems that are in place. Again, sorry to everybody whose interests lie outside the city centre. This is very city centre centric, but there is an awful lot of existing intelligence sharing that goes on above and beyond the direct reporting through 101. And I think one of the other things I just wanted to mention is that businesses have the ability, or anybody, residents, anybody has the ability to contact the police, not just through 101. There's a huge amount of queue issues. We know that with 101 when it's really busy, and people do lose the will to live, and I understand that. But you can report things online through an email, a dedicated email, or you can go through a website portal as well. And we've been kind of pushing information out to people to say, this is your other way and means of reporting these issues through. We also share our database with South Wales Police on a regular basis, and South Wales Police sit down with us and actually interrogate that database, and that actually feeds into the enforcement action that's been taken against a number of more prolific individuals who are a minority who are causing the majority of issues. So there's an awful lot of kind of that intelligence sharing that is going on already, which is good. I think we know what's going on. We know who the individuals are. We know who the hotspots are. There is action being taken against them, but perhaps that's not being communicated back. And I think There was a comment in the chat, I think it was from Roxanne. Is there feedback as a result of reporting? No, you don't get feedback. So you don't know what action has been done. You don't know if that complaint has fallen on somebody's desk. Is it being actioned? And you might walk away thinking, well, it's pointless. So definitely there's a communication issue there. And I think there is mileage in the Sentry system that Steve mentioned, but I also think we have to recognise that that system is very much in its infancy at the moment. I think it was set up back in April 2022. At the moment, there are only 21 businesses who actually registered with Sentry. So there's an awful lot more work to be done in terms of getting businesses on board. And, you know, there are issues that the police will have to contend with, and statutory partners will need to contend with in terms of issues around data protection and making sure if people are being identified, that the right people are being identified, and there is certain criteria in place to make sure that that's happening in the right way, so that that intelligence can indeed be actioned. So Sentry is very much in its early days. I think Steve would acknowledge that, and there's an awful lot more work to be done in terms of, you know, developing that system and the actual application of that system. But what I would say is, you know, there is a central system of collating all information on ASB, and it is through South Wales Police. There is 101, there is email, there is online. I think we need to be making sure that we're not encouraging the businesses to use Sentry at the detriment of not actually reporting it to the police. So I think there's just some caveats there that we need to be mindful of.
Thank you. We have, did Roxanne want to say anything else about how they'd like to see things improved? Oh,
yeah, so
sorry.
just in terms of the question 4, I was just going to say, I think the big thing that we would just say is that encouraging the engagement of the community, and it sounds like the engagement with young people was really successful. So continuation of that, feedback to the community, and then resource to those community groups and organisations that are supporting people that might kind of be getting involved in antisocial behaviour. I know that resource for them is always a struggle, so I would definitely encourage resource to go in, and maybe some new initiatives. I put one in the chat of something I'm aware of that works really well in Watford. So just whether there is if there is resource there, is there an opportunity to maybe pull some partners together and do something new to look at tackling antisocial behaviour across Swansea?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you. Yes, as part of a solution to sort of prevent and to tackle ASB, I assume that by resources you're talking about sort of personnel in the form of rangers, I suppose the police, PCSOs, and perhaps some of the night pastors that wander around the town. But just prior to the pandemic, I mean, I was involved with a drop-in centre at the Brunswick Church. Now that worked very well, because on a Wednesday, Friday, and a Saturday night we would have at least 40 and up to 70 of these lads we sort of categorised as being homeless, but it was a place for them to go on whilst they were there, and some of them were hard drug takers. But at least when they were there was something for them to do. I mean, we played drafts with cards, we sit down and talk, but there doesn't seem to be anything like that within the city centre. I mean, that could help. Well, it certainly, I felt it had it certainly helped, especially those lads where there was nowhere to, well, they weren't only lads, they were women as well, where they had nowhere to go. But the drop-in centre did work, but unfortunately it's closed down and didn't start up again. Thank you, Chair.
What do the church, and what hours do they open up for, you know, people to drop in? I think they call them drop-in centres. I mean, she hubs, but drop-in centres is my word for it. So is that on the weekend then, or?
Well, when the Brunswick Church was available, that was on a Wednesday evening, Friday evening, and a Saturday evening, and that was from the hours from 6 till 9. And we fed them as well, because there was food an opportunity to chat, play games, and we felt it was very successful. I mean, I can't say there was never any trouble, because we did get instances where, you know, there would be a bit of acrimony between one or two of the people, but it was rare. But I felt that it seemed to work. But I see those lads now. I mean, 3 or 4 years later, they're just wandering around the streets, you know, nowhere to go. And I'm wondering whether that could be a means of prevention and tackling antisocial behaviour.
Roxanne, is your hand up again, or was that from before?
It's up again. I was just going to mention again about resource. I think it's funding to the community groups, but it is also things like we would support people in the community to set up new initiatives, and setting up a youth club for people is really challenging, because it's very difficult for people to find a venue that will sort of be club there, whether it's sort of perceptions of what that's going to look like, or I'm not sure what it is, but it, you know, whether there's something where we could look at the resource in the community and whether there is scope to support people that might want to set up some of those things for people, you know, young people in particular, is quite difficult. So that's just something else I wanted to feedback.
Yeah, and could I say that when we went last week to the East Early Year Hub in Bryn Hyfryd, that was a typical example of where young people are, and it says in the, you know, in the comments about how they feel safe, you know, in that hub, and the local community, and perhaps that is something that the council could look at, about that, not just those kind of hubs, but hubs across the board for all sorts of people, not just young people.
Did Paul Whitaker like to come in again on anything, especially from outside the city centre as well? Did he have any ideas he'd like to put forward? Oh, sorry, we can't hear you again.
So I muted myself, which is what a lot of people would like me to do most of the time. Yeah, I think where we are in Mumbles, I mean, people just leave us to our own devices because they say, well, the kids have got loads of money and they just do what they do. But I mean, obviously we've got areas within the confines of Mumbles, West Cross and stuff, which, you know, there isn't that sort of level of backing from the parents. But we don't really have many youth clubs as such. And as someone mentioned earlier on, I mean, you know, even back in the old days of ourselves, I mean, we did sort of wander around, but I don't think we were as mischievous as the kids are now. And I think, again, someone else mentioned that it's almost like the kids have become more important than the people around them. So, like, you know, you can't tell them anything. The people are too scared to bring them to task. And then as they get older, that becomes worse. But we don't have a problem with, like you do in town, with like sort of adults who are causing trouble or wandering the streets. Ours is more sort of feral youths, really, have just been left to their own devices. But I think, as Russell mentioned, the old Giuliani New York broken window theory, you know, if people, what the kids seem to be doing by us is that if they're not taken to task or just left to get on with it, well, then they try and go that next little step then, and they're pushing and pushing and pushing constantly. And that's why really we've come to the position we've come to, because with all due respect, I mean, we're getting the PCSOs going up to them to give them a good talking to, but that's not really doing much. I don't really know what the solution is from a point of view of where we are. But, you know, what we've done since before COVID and since COVID, I mean, it's not much of a help. But when we do our events now, and we do the road closures and the castle, we specifically go out of our way to try and provide something for teenagers and the younger kids. Whereas before that, it wasn't really taken into consideration. The idea being is that if we can bring them into the community and into the events where they feel as if there's something being done for them, then the chances are the adults around them will not just sort of keep an eye on them as they progress through the event, but you know, it might give them a bit more of a feeling of being part of something rather than just being alienated and sitting in the park doing whatever they do. But as I say, I mean, we don't have the same issues as town, because ours is more of a sort of, I mean, we do have people coming into the area who are causing the problems, like the kids on the bikes. And I mean, that's a major thing for us, because at the moment, I mean, it's probably only a matter of time before there is a serious accident, because even 2 days ago at the weekend, there was someone on Facebook saying that they were down the pier with the family and 6 guys on off-road bikes come racing down the hill into the pier, not onto the pier, but into the road. And I don't know whether you know the pier that goes down and then round and up a hill. And they said they were going round there, sort of screeching round the corner and up the top. Well, you know, on a sunny day, that place is full, teeming with families and kids and youngsters running around, where they possibly think it's safe to do that. So, I don't know. But I think the Rangers are a good idea as well. I mean, it's a presence that the police possibly aren't providing overall. And I don't think I'd like to be a Ranger, because every time I see them, they seem to be up to their eyes just discussing, if that's the right word, the rights and wrongs of what these people are doing. But from where we are, outside of the city centre, I mean, another issue we've got sort of, and I don't know an awful lot about it, but it seems to be that there's a lot of families being dropped in West Cross from across the UK. Like, you know, we had a big issue the other day with a load of kids who were speaking with like Yorkshire accents, and we thought somebody said they thought they were tourists. And as it was, there was 2 families brought in by social services and put into West Cross. And apparently they'd been moved from Yorkshire because of whatever issues were going on up there. Well, as I say, I don't know the full story, but that doesn't really bode very well if you're taking people who are antisocial in one city and moving them to another one to try and alleviate the problem or something. I don't know. As I say, I don't know an awful lot about it, but that's what I was told. But yeah, I mean, you know, I suppose we're lucky that we don't have the problem we've got, but the problems we have got, we don't seem to have, like everyone else is saying, a solution for it. So, I mean, this is a good thing that people are getting together and discussing what should be done, because I think, again, going back to this broken window theory, you have to start at the very basics and basically make a point that people won't stand for what's going on around them and the rubbish and the boxes blowing around and God knows what, because it just allows people to take advantage of the situation. So,
Thank you.
Could I just ask on the Mumbles side of thing? I used to love Mumbles Carnival. I used to go every year. Last Saturday in July, because my birthday was on the 24th of July, and I used to fantastic carnival, dress up, and we used to put floats on, you know, from of Walters Road to Tembe Hotel, and we used to have a fantastic time down there. I used to always cover up, because then I could say I only come to Mumbles to wee in the doorway, because apparently it's the townies that does all that, not the people living in that area. But so have some great fun about it. And the other thing I'm interested is how the Underhill, I know it do fetch in anti-social behaviour, is how the Underhill Park development is coming on. Because again, you know, a lot of finance has gone into that and a lot of work's been done. And again, that helps that local community for sport and all that. They've got the rugby, they've got about 8 football teams, I believe, down in Mumbles now. I think we only ever lost only once, mine, but that was a long time ago. But yeah, I'm interested in those sort of things.
I mean, I think with things like Underhill, I mean, Underhill is great, and that'll be good for the kids who are involved in sports or want to get involved in sports. I mean, but children are facing totally different issues that we were facing when we were children, because, you know, I don't even think I came across any form of drug till I was about 19 or 20. Whereas some of the kids we speak to now, we try to get some of the youngsters, like the 12, 13, 14-year-olds involved in our events as sort of mini stewards, so to speak. And the stories they're coming out with is like, bloody hell, like, you know, I just didn't know any of this went on. And obviously there's a lot of stuff going on that maybe we don't necessarily, well, not all of us, but know about in the background. And I think that's, again, you know, it's something that I never dealt with when I was a child, and I came from quite a rough area. But now things just seem to be escalating. I mean, they don't seem to be getting any better. They just seem to be getting a little bit worse quicker than they possibly would have before COVID. And again, I mean, I know, you know, people say about the police are underfunded and stuff like that, but I mean, I just get the impression, I mean, that although now they've opened up Mumbles police station as a sort of a check-in point, there's a lot more police around, but it still doesn't deter the kids from driving a high speed up and down past the police station. So again, I mean, I don't think we can maybe use the police as a deterrent, because I don't think they are necessarily a deterrent anymore to a lot of the children. So I don't know, you know, we're in a tough situation really of how to deal with it. I mean, and as Ben said, with some of the elements, you can't take your eye off the fact that a lot of these kids aren't from a rich family. A lot of them are from poor families who've got issues, and that has to be sort of looked at the same time. So,
Thank you. I was thinking, should we wrap up if people have got final comments? Yep.
Something to mention as well.
Russell.
If that's okay, Chair. I've forgot to mention as well as something else that we are doing as well, about additional resources that we're going to be providing, is that we've had confirmation that we'll be delivering a pop-up cop shop in a street in the city centre, which is not far from where the issues you've mentioned going on there, specifically targeted to deal with these issues. And it's very much a partnership approach, Chair. We've had the support of the police. Steve will be leading on it from Swansea Against Business Crime, but the door is open for the local authority to get involved with that, working in partnership for us. It will be there roughly about 3 months. Again, we are putting our money where our mouth is in order to see how we can work together to tackle these issues. So to those relevant officers on the screen, please make contact with myself or Steve, and we can give you some dates when that will be operational, and we can share the intelligence that as well, from what we gather from the businesses and everything else. So it's a very practical way of us trying to deal with what we're discussing today.
And I think it's sometime last week, I bet you, regarding the fire authority are doing something in Oxford Street in June. And they're also doing, I think it's a charity thing in Oxford Street. Then they're moving on to Castle Gardens to show people what work they do. And it's like a competition, if you like. But those sort of things to me, I am a member of the fire authority, I could declare interest, but those things also are very, because they do some good work, well, excellent work with the young firefighters, or they call now young fire cadets, not young firefighters, and they're a passing out parade in Newtown recently. And we don't hear about those sort of that good stuff as well. And of course, fire authority themselves comes up against antisocial behaviour, with things being thrown at them when they're trying to deal with perhaps a tragic incident, whether it's a road crash or a fire. And I'm looking forward to the thing in June anyway. I'll be there.
As I said, it's an opportunity. It will become with police. Will be based there as well, so we'll be able to report things physically. And, Steve has been organising, and we'll be able to have the right tracking on it to see police are there doing X, Y, and Z. It's intelligence led, really. So we'll be there pursuing what we do. And as I see Lisa's hand up, so welcome partnership approach for that. Really, that's it. Really, Chair. Thank you.
Opportunity for members of the public to actually pass information on whether it's the fire authority or the police. That could be a good.
Jeffrey?
I don't know whether I'm sort of teaching us all to suck eggs here, but is it going to be a recommendation that a kind of working party is formed to address the solutions to antisocial behaviour, rather than to talk about it, as some of the comments in the consultation document says, rather than it being a talking shop to talk about? I think we know what antisocial behaviour is all about, but what can we practically and physically do to address the problem of antisocial behaviour?
You as a member, and all the others will be a part of when we put in this, the report and the recommendations together. So bear that in mind. But when it comes to that particular meeting, there's things like that that can be put forward. But the important thing is following the recommendations up. In the past, we've had recommendations, and the people haven't gone in to check on the cabinet members to see if they've introduced A, B, or C of the recommendations. It's worth following it up. Yeah.
I might be useful for everyone to know what happens with the evidence that's given today and all the evidence that actually is used by we've actually gathered as part of the inquiry. We've got another meeting next week with voluntary groups, and that will be the end of the evidence gathering stage. We will then put a findings report together, which will bring together all the evidence and the detailed transcripts from each meeting. Members will sit down and look at that in depth and agree and discuss recommendations, in which I'll put together a final report, which I suspect will be ready in about September. And we will circulate that round for people to have a look at and comment upon, especially those people who've, and that will go to Cabinet with a set of recommendations. The accepted recommendations from Cabinet will then be taken forward, and we'll follow up on that periodically for a period of time until we're happy those recommendations have been implemented to our satisfaction. Just one more thing.
The action points that we've mentioned earlier on, the talk, but what's the action, who's going to, and it's always worth finding out who is going to take that forward, the action, and how they're going to report it back. Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to say was if people have got anything further they want to put forward to us after the discussion today, if you can email that to me, and that will also be included in the evidence pack. I think we've just got Lisa Wells wanted to speak. Sorry, Lisa, you're muted.
I knew it was going to be at least one occasion where I muted myself. Yeah, it kind of follows on from what you've just said, guys, in terms of kind of the recommendations. I think the key thing is, we've had a lot of discussion today. It's extracting what those, practical solutions are that are going to improve things. And, kind of a practical solution might be the pop-up shop. Thank you for that information, Russell. It's the first time I've heard of that. So that's really, really good. We'll follow that up. But I think one practical thing that we haven't touched upon that comes with the natural surveillance, comes with encouraging footfall into the city centre, encouraging footfall into areas which are suffering at the moment because of broken windows or suffering because of issues around occupancy, and comes down to potentially a resource issue, is putting on events and activities in areas that are going to entice people in and help provide that natural surveillance and the visibility of some of these issues that we've been talking about dissipates somewhat, because at the moment, if you've got reducing footfall, some of these issues that we're talking about are much more obvious and in the public sightline. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we need to recognise is that there's an awful lot of development work going on in the city centre at the moment, and that is really going to increase over the next couple of months, particularly in areas around Castle Square and McDonald's, which has already got a lot of works going on in terms of the British Home Stores building. We need to be we need to work really hard to make sure that whilst those works are going on, we don't create further issues of antisocial behaviour. So the whole kind of designing out and target hardening kind of approach is critical. And I'd also say, because I know we're short of time, as a solution, target hardening and designing out issues is a fundamental as well. And we know that there are some hotspots areas in the city centre that would benefit from some tinkering to alleviate some of these issues, but recognising that displacement could then be a potential issue in its own right. So again, not a simple, easy solution, but as solutions go, I think there's a number of things there that we need to reflect in terms of taking this agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you. If I hand over to Terry for any final questions for councillors.
Start putting the reports and recommendations together, and I expect you all to play a major part in that. Maybe with this report, perhaps, yes, the recommendation, the actions, who's going to be responsible for taking that action forward. So we always know then someone who is, who we can go to find out what is going on. Apart from that, that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much for attending, and the cabinet members. I know we had a more interested sort of meeting with about 20 youngsters last week. And again, I want to praise up this place, this little hub up there. And you've seen the report, what these young people came up with. And again, I would say, you know, let's talk about some of the good things that these young people are doing. They're doing some fantastic work. Thank you very much.
Thank everyone for their time as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Ta-ra.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.